didn't change the date. I totally think that I still have this listed as September 2nd, but today is the 3rd. Holy smokes. Welcome to another edition of XFeed. Today, we have an absolute doozy. I don't know how to put it into perspective. So we're going to have, obviously, your bullish news. We got some pretty wild things that have been coming out on the timeline from some very notable projects in a previous light. It's making me come to a little bit of a realization as well that a lot of people that experienced the NFT run previously have, I don't know, for lack of a better term, PTSD regarding certain situations. And so if you're newer to the space, or if you were kind of around, but you weren't really ingrained in everything, there'll be things that happen that people are incredibly critical of all of a sudden. And you might sit there thinking, that's weird. Why is that person critical about it? And it's because a reference point of something that was uber negative that happened previously. Now, something super positive in my life is when Tolly came in. Yo, what's going on, brother? How are you doing? Do you remember the first NFT that you minted? I'm seeing that take on the timeline. The only bad thing, well, there's probably a lot of bad things, but one of the bad things about Twitter, specifically NFT crypto Twitter, is that you have a take or something and people just regurgitate it. We had that with the Donald Trump NFTs coming out, and then all of a sudden they were suing OpenSea or sending that Wells notice, right? Everybody had that exact same take. And now I'm seeing where we mentioned the other day of like, what was the first NFT you bought? I've seen like 6 different accounts tweet that today. Guys, there's a lot more to talk about. And if you can't find it, well, I set notifications up either on X, Twitch, or YouTube, and I'm here to provide it for you every single day. Wait, Tolly, what did you get? What was your first NFT? You didn't even say. Guy says yes, of course, and then doesn't even say it. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Okay. So the post got deleted, but in League of Legends, there is various pro scenes, one in Europe, one in North America, also down in Brazil. And the top team in Korea had their account hacked. And they were shilling some Solana coin called Hacker. The dead something? Deadheads? Yo, Tolly's first mint was Deadheads. I'm assuming that's what it is, because there wasn't that many thing with the word dead in it back in the day. So anyway, the post got deleted, but 1 million people saw that, T1 wasn't able to do it. Now, also to add to this, just for context, there's a player called Faker, and he's arguably like the best player in the world. Insane stardom, like the LeBron James in the Korean scene. You know what I mean? Like everybody sees him in public, they're like, oh my goodness, I know who that guy is. But the catch with this is that they launched NFTs like last year called LCK Legendaries. And there's nothing. And so I had a little bit of a back and forth like regarding this, where AGM was kind of saying, maybe we need to rechange the verbiage of crypto, just have like Bitcoin's Bitcoin and then crypto's crypto or whatever. And I just felt like I should show this. So this is who Faker is right here. Chovy's arguably the top guy right now, but that's irrelevant. But anyway, I've got 2,000 followers, totally official. Last post in January, basically nothing going on with it. And it's just, okay, happens. But the point of me going back and forth with AGM and bringing it up now is that there's still a huge stigma against crypto, and the narratives, similar to how I started the show talking about how you can see people that have been in the space that are hypercritical of things, is because they've seen, okay, repeatedly, this certain aspect isn't good, yada, yada. And, well, damn, people in League of Legends, I guess they're just going to think crypto sucks forever. Fantastic space a little bit earlier today. I retweeted on my page if you guys want to go listen. Talked with the man behind Courtyard, or at least one of the co-founders for that, with Tyler and Maddie B. Great session. And one of the things, if you don't listen to it, that's okay. Listen, not judging you, but I'll leave you with this one thought that was said from Nicholas Lejeune in this. And he was talking about how when he had to go to Brinks, who's this big security provider, they vault assets. Obviously, you've probably seen them out in front of banks, but now they're actually getting into the collectible space, and I think are like a direct investor in Courtyard, which is pretty wild if you're wanting to watch that story. But I asked him about the time when he was going out there trying to pitch this idea to them. And there was a guy named Oliver there that really saw, hey, like, this is the future. I love this. I want to get into it. And Lejeune said that if you can just find the champion in a company, that's what you have to do. And it made me think of like Game of Thrones when you had the champion that fought for you. And every single company that's not Web3 or associated with blockchain at all probably has that one person that's going to be the champion. But you need to bring it out. You need to find that one person. Okay, into a whole bunch of news. This one coming up on time. Shout out to my dad for finding this one. Listen. Out here finding, learning the ropes. Fantastic. New Web3 wallet rolls out decentralized crypto inheritance. Now, instead of going through that entire thing, I'll play this quick clip of Nikita explaining what this is, and you're not ready because it's actually kind of wild.
Sometimes, people who inherit money, they don't also usually spend it in the right way.
True.
And I can create a signature to a lawyer or for attorney. And after my death, for example, this person who inherit all of the money, and for example, he wants to buy instead like a fancy car, and the lawyer will get notification. If you create a third signature to the lawyer, he'll get notification that this person is gonna buy a car, and he's not gonna provide him the signature, and so it means that this person will never be able to spend money in the wrong way.
Phenomenal breakthrough. Obviously would be super bad for a person that's like, I want to do these things, but we have this written out. But it's true. A lot of people do a lot of stupid stuff. Like, hey, listen, myself included. I'm not, I'm no better than the next, but it's a wild thought that if you have that amount of money, how are you going to set that up? Now, there's probably traditional ways of doing that, but think of the amount of people that are now really paying attention to Web3, really thinking, hey, this is like a place that I could potentially store wealth, have a decent amount of assets. And even if I'm just looking at a collector standpoint, right? There's people out there collect shoes, they collect cards, graded, not graded, a whole bunch of stuff. All these things have different value, but what happens if something unfortunate does happen? And so just that thought is really fascinating to me, but it's D-Trust Wallet, if anybody's wanting to look that up. And again, shout out to my dad for finding that spot. So Boomer made an interesting post here where I was talking about the Zynga offloading Sugartown, which if you didn't see the space yesterday, feel free to go watch. But basically, it was announced that Zynga is now giving off Sugartown to this D20 Labs. Basically, the consensus was that, okay, they're launching a token, probably, and they don't want to be associated with Zynga, or Zynga didn't see that there was going to be more from it. And again, these bigger corporations, probably a lot of loopholes, and it's just easier to do things in like a smaller team, I guess. But apparently, like the whole team that was working on it stayed with it. And so there was a specific part in this. So what does this mean for Web3 gaming? 1.1 billion poured into Web3 gaming in Q2 of 2024. And this is one thing that I've like repeatedly mentioned. Oh, yo, and Divine Hypnotoad, what's up? I saw you wag me. I should have said hi sooner. My apologies. But the aspect of a billion getting poured into the Web3 space, like every single quarter, like in terms of like investing, yada, yada, is huge, but nobody's really talking about it. Rona Network keeps pushing Web3 gaming forward. They've attracted over 1.9 million new daily wallets, and Pixels Online is a cut above the top Web3 games. And then the mention of Rooneyverse in here is having a moment right now, and people seem to be really enjoying it. Awesome work, Bearsnape. I don't think Web3 gaming is dead. It's just built different. Building a game is hard, and Zynga discovered that making a Web3 game is even harder. It's just a matter of time before someone nails it and scales it. And then at the beginning of this, it was kind of like also talking about how like it fell off a little bit. And, we've seen with everything where it's like, okay, it's all over the timeline and then it's not. It's all over the timeline and then it's not, or it's over the timeline once and then it kind of disappears. It's weird to think about, right? Because we're sitting here just viewing the space being like, all right, we like Web3, we like this NFT idea. Are we going to go out and play half of these games? No. Even for the free to play versions, are you even going out there? We have people that are interacting with the blockchain that have tokens that have NFTs, but generally I feel most people are pretty secluded and not really trying to go out there at all. Okay, drum roll, please. This one is this one. Listen, not sure if you need to sit back, grab a drink, relax. This one is going to be spicy. So, Jenkins The Valet. If you weren't around early days, my kind of viewpoint on what Jenkins The Valet was, early on, there was several different opportunities to do something with Bored Apes and I guess Yuga before it was like officially Yuga and all this craziness. And so they had like $1,000-ish grants. I think some of them were a little bit more, depending on like where you placed on it. There was some honorary mentions. For example, Josh Ong, if you know that individual, he got some funds to be able to host some parties. I think it was like in New York and some other places, and just, pay for dinner. But there was other ones that you were able to get a lot more out of, in a way. And I don't want to be totally wrong with the facts here. I don't remember if it was $1,000 for all or if it was that tiered system. But Jenkins The Valet did get some attention because they wanted to create a brand around just an NFT that they minted that looked like a valet character. So they started to build up their own intellectual property with Jenkins The Valet. Now, Jenkins The Valet went on to write a book about the ape, and they sold different NFTs that had like keychains. That one was like a yacht where your ape would be like featured as a main character, and there was all this conversation around them going from Bored Apes IP to the next book being about Cool Cats to the next book being about VeeFriends. At least that's my recollection. I might be confusing that with something else, but the concept sounded awesome. Because at the time, there really wasn't a whole lot of Web3. The idea was, hey, they could be kind of an independent publisher, and they had some events at New York City. They had Neil Strauss announce that they were going to write a book for them, and they did some different art pieces and ended up trying to branch off and create the Azurbala NFT collection. And I was kind of like, when all this was going on, I was like a little bit confused because, people really did like the idea of Jenkins The Valet, and that they were supporting apes, all this other stuff. But then it turned into them trying to like create their own IP. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But when you kind of get the heights that you do because of a specific IP, when you branch off and try to introduce something new and tell people, doesn't always connect. But so that brings us to today, where it's been relatively quiet on what the heck's going on here. So this is what Jenkins The Valet put out this morning. I'm Blake Chasen, but most of you know me as Jenkins The Valet, the character that I created more than 3 years ago. Most of you have heard a lot over the years from Jenkins The Valet, but you haven't heard directly from me. I'm writing today because in this post I want to outline some things that are going to change for Jenkins The Valet and the associated NFT projects, Writer's Room, and Azurbala. I also want to share how our purpose has shifted at Tally Labs and how that informs our new direction. You can read all about it, Okay. So I have maybe 7 to 8 posts that are thrashing this announcement. Like, you think it's bad? The meme of like Milhouse saying stop, he's dead, or Bart Simpson? That's kind of the level of the post that we're about to get into. However, to do it justice, I feel that we should read through this. So for anybody that hates me reading through some info, I apologize, but I hope this takes in less than 4 minutes. We'll try to read fast. I'm Blake Chasen. Most of you know me as Jenkins The Valet. Most of you all want to go over the new direction. So Avenue Stories. For anyone who has followed Jenkins The Valet since the beginning, you won't be surprised. Let me try to make this bigger for you guys. Does that work? Yeah. For anyone who has followed Jenkins The Valet since the beginning, you won't be surprised to learn that I have a very foundational belief that people like to create and consume content where they themselves are the main character. This is what motivated my initial Jenkins The Valet stories and everything we tried to do with Writer's Room and Azurbala. It's motivated everything we built over the last 3 years. In some cases, we built some really cool stuff. We published an NFT book with a 10x New York Times bestselling author featuring more than 4,000 characters. Of course, not everything hit the mark, and I learned a lot from the Azurian PFP rollout and other mistakes we made along the way. So if you weren't around, then there was these Azurbala PFPs, profile pictures, that were launched, and they didn't look like anything of a significant team that had a ton of funding made them. They look like your kind shady NFT from back in the day, and it was one of the largest FUD fest we've seen across Web3. I mean, it transcended markets. It was pretty bad, to be respectful. It was pretty bad. Throughout our whole journey thus far and my interactions with many of you and others, I've come to learn something really important. The people who most enjoy seeing themselves as the hero of a story are kids. If you have kids, you already know this. Kids' imaginations are unbelievable. They have the ability to make themselves football playing unicorns or nice space advent. Okay, what the heck does this have to do with anything? Bedtime is a new adventure every night featuring a new mix of days, events, their best friends or siblings, and a wild array of completely made up stuff. Ultimately, we discovered the kids are where we need to spend our time to create the most impact. Okay. So this is kind of a wild line because we also know the only other kids brand that I can think of that's, like kind of major within the space is VFriends. Again, they're focusing more on kids with like their books and whatnot. Because of this insight, we've developed Avenue Stories, a mobile app where kids can turn themselves into characters and then play hundreds of text and image-based episodes from a library of content that injects their character attributes and details into the story. One player might be Brooks, a basketball-loving kid from New York. Brooks' friend finds these details reflected back to him in the content he consumes. Then another kid, Sarah from Winnipeg, can play the version. Soon kids will be able to almost instantly generate their own plot lines rather than just play ones that already exist. Okay, so I guess this is taking user-generated content in a whole nother light. That means kids won't be the only main characters in the stories they consume, but also in ones they create. Okay, so this is, I guess, what the application looks like. Again, pretty decent quality. Don't have anything too in-depth to say as that. So for Writer's Room and Azerbala, with all that excitement, it comes with a difficult set of emotions and choosing to focus on developing Avenue rather than continuing to pursue IP opportunities for Writer's Room and Azerbala at this time. That's tough. For a few years, we've tried to find new ways for Writer's Room and Azerbala to click. We made changes to Writer's Room, decentralized opportunities to exercise creativity, and we spared no expense to freshen the Azurian PFPs when they initially flopped. They did. When Hollywood turned their back on NFTs, we spent another 12 months turning over every single rock possible to try to piece together, try to bring a piece of mainstream IP to life. All of the money that we earned from the NFT mints and secondary royalties was deployed in trying to reach our aspirations for our projects. This includes bringing industry leaders like CAA Neil Strauss, Ty Carter and his team of Pixar and Activision artists, Fubar, Emma Needle, and others. Funds were also used to compensate payouts to profit sharers in Bored and Dangerous, which was the book they wrote, the development of Azurian Median, and software development from the Writer's Room and Azerbala platforms. I say this because I think it's important to let you know that all the money we earned from mints and royalties of these NFTs went back into projects. The development of Avenue is being funded exclusively with some of the VC capital that we raised. Now, we'll get into some of the specifics of their numbers, but I guess to put it mildly, these people must have cost millions of dollars individually because they flew through money. So if you see people that are partnering with massive names that are associated with CAA, I mean, Futureverse is partnered with them. So again, I don't know what exactly that means, but bringing in a person and their entire team of Pixar and Activision artists, I mean, is art that important? I don't know. We'll get into it. Let me keep reading. This brings me to one of the key points of this post, which is that for tons of different factors, our NFT projects have lost escape velocity. It feels terrible to acknowledge that truth, but it must be acknowledged precisely because it is the truth. However, I still believe wholeheartedly in the Jenkins and Writer's Room and Azerbala IP. I think there is a world where ETH NFTs come back and the early role that these projects played and their vast lore will make them enticing for new IP opportunities. I believe in the future there may be very well be opportunities for this IP that are beneficial for the company and the community, but that's not the case today. We are retaining ownership over our IP, but we are going to stop putting resources towards continuing any projects today or investing in new ones. We believe that the opportunity may arise again in the future, but is not the case today. Okay, so if you can give me a breather here for a second, does anybody have any thoughts on reading that article? Because I imagine most of you have only seen the headline. You didn't read the article, did you, Squidward? I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to come up with thoughts. I've seen other people's thoughts about it. Reading this in person, I mean, it feels a little weird that they're keeping the IP and they're saying, maybe one day. It's not today. We dead so, baby. And I don't know. I mean, the kids app sounds kind of cool. I think that I'm surprised at I would almost argue there's been more positivity regarding this than negative. And to the point of Gargamel from BOIC kind of joking about raising too much money, I think the perceptions of what's going on with Jenkins is going to be very clouded by how much money that they ended up bringing in. But to be honest, I would argue maybe the biggest takeaway for me is how insane trying to bring in top tier people to Web3 costs. I mean, this whole thing right here, if we just break this down and go into some of the numbers, kind of nuts. Okay, so We went over that piece a second ago. Steve K. Bark, I wanted to highlight this because it was kind of like a positive sentiment, where the other ones, again, not great. Jenkins The Valet, what a ride. Today, Jenkins The Valet announced that Tally Labs is moving away from NFT utility, at least for now. It's a good time to reflect and appreciate how this team led the charge in many ways in Web3. So off this first line, and kind of to the title of like, hey, if you're optimistic, don't watch the stream. Because we have shit like this that happens. Now, regarding the Zynga thing, okay, like we can brush that off and say, listen, if the team is the exact same, again, I don't follow that collection uber closely by any means, but people have the association of, okay, this is a Zynga brand and it's a selling thing when they get to talk and be excited about it. That's no longer the case for heavy metal, as we mentioned with Yuga, for, you know, Tally Labs, Jenkins, all these things. Hey, this is great. They have like this author. They've been doing all these things. Yeah, they're not doing anything anymore. But there wasn't really any signs except for stuff just stopped happening within the collections, right? Like, how can you know unless you're like, okay, like I kind of see the writing on my wall. I'm educated on this stuff and I have these reflection points. And this is why people get so strung up on things. So Jenkins The Valet was one of the early uses of IP rights for NFTs in a community brand. True. Was a Bored Ape Community Grant recipient, as I shared the story. In the first round of grants awarded, the grant model has been replicated by many utility-based NFT brands. Used that grant to build a startup, which received $12 million in funding at an undisclosed valuation. Home built a portal to license your own NFT IP or license your NFT IP to someone else, a completely novel concept at the time. Actually paid out those holders for lending their IP to a product, published a book with 10-time New York Times bestselling author about NFT IP. Now, listen, not to be negative, right? Because I feel like we've kind of generally gone in that direction, but does this last line mean anything if any collection can find an author and, you know, pay them a bunch of money to write about NFTs, right? Because I mean, I'm arguing that's what's going to happen. Now, to the Nicholas Lejeune thing, we were talking about Courtyard a little bit earlier, founding a champion within a brand. Well, maybe at CAA, they were like, hey, we need to find some different authors, and hey, here's one that's down for it for the right price. The team took a swing at NFT IP rights and storytelling unlike anyone else in Web3, and in the aftermath, it's easy to have a short-term memory and forget how they ran headfirst to things that had quite literally never been done before. So again, there was some cool components to it for like the book, but I still feel like there wasn't really any imagery. The book was like marketed kind of to only Web3 people, and it was never like, Steve wrote a book himself, and I feel like it was, I believe it was about NFTs, and that's done phenomenally, and it's like, you know, escapaded the space. But the Neil Strauss thing, I feel like that was kind of like a one and done, and that was it. So Beanie's saying, so Jenkins The Valet sold 8 figures of NFTs in 2 mints, took in millions in royalties, plus another 8-fig seed round, decided to just pack it up and call it a day, and no outrage on the timeline. Nobody calling it a rug, legacy NFT companies are nearly all walking dead, NFT 2.0, the future. Do think it's kind of optimistic for some of the collections that have been actively working, and you can see that. This is what the original collection of Azerbala looked like, just so you have an idea. Maybe I undersold it, maybe I oversold it of how not great it was, but I mean, we have kind of like I mean, is it a human? Is it a monkey? Is it like an avatar? But it's like new school because we got chains, we got a bathrobe. I mean, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Yo, Atari, what's going on, Bruchacho? So not the greatest. But Whale Mocha saying they sold us storytelling NFTs. The only story which they could have told us is how on earth they thought this would be a good profile picture. Now, again, Thread Guy, if you're familiar with him, he got a lot of backlash of this too because he was director of Vibes, which goes back to the conversation around the amount of money that they had with this because, I mean, Thread Guy, I mean, how much did they end up paying that? What was kind of the impact? Because I felt like he held spaces, but I didn't really see his impact kind of otherwise except for that title for awareness. And then all the other people that went with it that we've covered in that article. So Jenkins The Valet raised the following: $7 million on original mint, $1.3 million on royalties, $4 million on Bored and Dangerous mint, which was their book, $1 million on Bored and Dangerous royalties, and $12 million on a seed round. That's $25,300,000. If you believe they spent that in good faith before closing, you must be a huge fiction fan and dumber. Okay, listen, dude. But this is what I mean, right? Because we have this biases of, okay, there's teams that go out there and they try to do stuff and they flounder, right? Okay, that's kind of fair. But then when something happens that they kind of like close up shop of what they're doing, but you're like, hey, they had $25.3 million US to work with. Like, how, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Yo, Atari, what's going on, Bruchacho? So not the greatest. But this is what I mean, right? Because we have this biases of, okay, there's teams that go out there and they try to do stuff and they flounder, right? Okay, that's kind of fair. But then when something happens that they kind of like close up shop of what they're doing, but you're like, hey, they had $25.3 million how bad is the asset management in that? You know what I mean? Like, it seems kind of insane. And the awkward part is I remember we were back all the time, like champion all these different people saying, hey, these are the best in the biz. They can see the future. They're jumping in the blockchain space. But you know, the same issues that we had as people like looking and saying, okay, what's good or bad? I mean, a lot of these people were dealing with the exact same thing, but on the other side of the coin where they're building this and it's like, oh, this is going to cost like $500,000 to do something. It's like, I don't know. Okay, sure. It's just like insane. Insane. What the F is that? Is that what people see when they see our bunny? Maybe. Listen, I've seen some people rip on the bunnies as well. But I mean, I don't know. Not sure if anybody has any extra takes. Obviously, we've seen some good, some bad on the timeline. I feel like I kind of have like somewhat of a negative view on it just because of like the amount of money and thinking like, hey, you know, everybody was so excited. They had this New York party where they probably spent, you know, tens of thousands of dollars on this drink, this venue for an evening. And then it's like, okay, so stuff kind of happened for a year, then I went to the side, and now nothing else is going on. It's like, why were we hyped up for that initially? Watching those stats makes me realize how dumb we are. No wonder everyone tries to extract liquidity from us. And so thank you for saying that, Atari, because that's like a prime example of why I've mentioned a whole bunch of times, and I feel like I'm going to keep saying it throughout the space, is everybody has a notion or event or knowledge of something that's happened, and they are not trying to like pick on anybody, right? But if you're holding a collection and you see something that's kind of suspicious, feels a little off, we have so much to go off of where it's like, hey, like, again, not trying to be a dick or anything, but this was a really bad sign in another collection, and you guys are going down that path. How problematic is this? You know what I mean? Anyway, let's move on. If you've got any extra thoughts on it, feel free to let me know. Was going to make reference to FTX. Yeah, okay, we're not talking about FTX, but I wanted to go back to the post the other day where I highlighted that Polkadot was sponsoring the Miami FC soccer jerseys, and I found this post that was awesome, and it was every crypto sponsor in this season's Premier League, which is like the massive soccer football league in Europe. So Arsenal's got like 3 different sponsors. Aston Villa's got one. Chelsea, Bing X, one of the exchange. Everton's got Stake, eToro, and another one. Okay, X is on here. eToro, Rollbit, Floki, Tezos for Manchester United. You can see all of these massive players are trying to, you know, pay the premium price to get attention. Very interesting. So Base has gone from 4 million monthly active users to 14 million in a few months. What are these 10 million new users doing? Which app sectors of Base ecosystem are benefiting? This is a great question. I have no idea. I mean, so if we sit back and we can say, all right, so for Doodles, let's say that brought in like 60,000 people, which I don't think the number is that high, but you know, the on-chain summer, whatever, that helped people. I mean, I touched Base for the first time with that, to be totally honest. I've heard about it, not really explored a whole lot. But I don't know, like the other ecosystems. I typically see, the thing I find weird is like, not that, you know, hey, I see everything, but like my timeline's pretty good where like I just go on like the For You page and I scroll for hours and I pick different stuff out here and there, but it gives me like every different chain, every different collection. I don't really need to follow anything in specific. Timeline's awesome. But I don't see anything that's going on like with Base except for people saying, hey, like we're doing these things on Base, but I don't see people talking about it. I see companies saying that they're building on it. And so when you scroll through the comments in here, 66 comments, no one has the answer. I think a lot of the attention traffic is going to on-chain summer, but also curious on your smart wallets. ISB saying, to be honest, I'm highly suspicious of these numbers. I'm not even sure I'd believe 1 million people are active monthly on-chain users of any L2. Kind of agree with that. Elio Trade saying check out Super Champs, 300,000 built on Base. Again, if it's just a game where people go to and it doesn't have all those necessary Web3 rails, okay, cool, right? But it is kind of just an interesting thought. Justin, Qatar officially introduces regulatory framework for digital assets. Now, I did a space with RWA World and segment for the RWA's collectible the other week, and I'm trying to, it was in the RWA.world newsletter, and there was some regulation topics. I want to say it was Cambodia that actually started to have an app that was built on blockchain rails to help people that are tourists come there and pay in like other currencies. And I was like, okay, that is awesome. And everywhere is doing different like framework, whatever. But the fact that they just have it for digital assets is amazing. So Qatar jumping on with that. Cool headline just to see. Now, question for you, and this is caught in a lot of news. So you guys might be familiar with this, but for the U.S. elections, I guess there was this campaign for Kamala Harris that came out, and they were using the Philadelphia Eagles branding on it, and holy smokes. So one, apparently it wasn't official, but then people went up and started putting covers on it to hide it, I guess. But Eagles made a statement saying, we are aware counterfeit political ads are being circulated and are working with our advertising partner to have them removed. Now, in a weird kind of way, obviously obsessed with Web3 over here, is I'm thinking, damn, when we get into this whole blockchain space, how does this work? When you have advertisements that are out and around, the authenticity of things. I mean, we can see that on chain. How does that work in the metaverse? When you see an ad, is it going to be the same way? Are people going to have overpowers of it? What's the perspective? Because I mean, out in the normal world, you just go out there, things say whatever, you see whatever, you kind of just take it for face value, unless you're super connected where you're like, oh, okay, well, apparently that's not actually true, but it's portrayed that way. And so it's just making me think a little bit more about the blockchain transparency, the authentication of things, and all that. Just in FTX to return $16 billion to creditors starting in Q4 2024. Now, if I told you every single collection out there that's still building on something was waiting for this exact moment because they knew, hey, the liquidity is coming back, would you say that I'm crazy? Or would you say, true? We've seen this a lot, right? Everybody keeps talking about how creditors are going to get their money back. $16 billion. $16 billion. Now, the question is, are people that potentially got burned from that before in a better spot financially than they were at the time? Are they going to still be in the space? Or are they just going to be like, no, I'm getting the hell out? Interesting perspective. Got another tweet coming up in a little bit if you're wanting to listen to that. Love for you to stick around. Give me a like. Whoa! You guys are hot. Walker World Area 6545, our staking store now supports the Root Network. This is freaking awesome. So if you happen to have any Fluff World eggs, you've been able to earn these different points for ooze, and you can buy seekers. I think there's buzzies. There's even fluffs in there. And they've also reduced the price of how much ooze you have to spend for them. Now, there are limits of one per character because they have a whole bunch of different things per account, but still actually really, really love the idea and the fact that they lowered it, because before it seemed like, okay, that was just, you're never going to get enough points to get it, but it seems rather, reasonable at this point. So yesterday we had a 500 ETH offer on a CryptoPunk, and we got another one. 1.278 mil. Our NFT's coming back? Wow. I mean, this X copy just sold for $50,000, and it's the word terror. Terrifying. 50 ETH. Say maybe the market's starting to come back. Metalcore here. Metal Punk's Rhapsody. After 3 thrilling closed beta phases, Metalcore opens to the public on September 12th. So to recap, we just had Illuvium that did their big launch. We had Guild of Guardians that did their big global launch. And now we have Metalcore that's starting to come out and show this. And the, I guess, only kind of connective factors for these different projects was they've started early on, right? When all these crazes started happening and people were talking about, oh, is it going to be the avatars that are popping up, or gaming NFTs that pop up, or DAOs that are going to dominate? It's funny because when we look back, we used to have all those conversations, and now everybody's like, yeah, well, PFPs are dead. It's going to be gaming NFTs or real world assets or... But at the time, we were literally thinking that digital identities were going to be the alpha way back when. So again, if you want to check out Metalcore, looks like their full launch is starting to come up. It does look really nice. It looks like a Titanfall type game. If I was going to give it a maybe a reference point that you might get, but emphasis on the Titan aspect, because a lot of these battles in the gameplay I've seen is usually someone riding a huge Titan like Pacific Rim, as you see right there. But it's also kind of got that Star Wars Chaser vibes. But looks decent. Looks decent. Repeat after me, okay? I will not say a game is good just because I have bags, and deep down, I know I never play it on a regular basis. Wow. Okay. I will not say a game is good just because I have bags, and deep down, I know I never play it on a regular basis. It was like the Jack Black and the kid in like School of Rock when he's like, let's rock today, right? Or wait, no. This is like I pledge allegiance to the band. Never mind. Two different scenes. Still a great movie. Either way, this is very interesting where I see like, you know, a lot of people on the timeline talking about certain things, and we have like this, like call it awkward, where, you know, people are like excited about things, but at the same time, are they actually playing the games that they're into right now? I mean, I would say I highlighted before, like the Forgotten Rooneyverse. I love playing on the like the pre-alpha segment that they had open for a few days. Admittedly, I haven't played it since it reopened. Now, I enjoyed it a lot. Why did I not do it? I mean, if I was going to give a reason, and it's kind of stupid, so there's that. But I went because they have these new like daily donuts and these things that you can kind of complete, like quests, to be able to, you know, generate points and be on these leaderboards, get airdrops, yada, 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 yada. And it said that I needed to connect a Ronin wallet, or I think it also had like another Web3 wallet, but I was like, you know, I don't really know if I need to go and figure out all my Ronin stuff because that was forever ago. Do I just connect right now? And I'm like, it's whatever. How stupid of a reason is that? But it's a genuine reason why I haven't tried it lately. Kind of strange. Beginning to be more clear in the Web3 gaming industry, Immutable is where you'll find all the best games. Okay, interesting take. I can't stop playing a Raven Quest game. This, I have not heard about it at all. A free-to-play and earn MMORPG by a fully doxed studio. Interesting, they're saying, hey, we have real names. Setting the new standard for Web3 games. And I guess they just had their early access, which had 103,000 quests completed. A Salt Dusk Executioner killed 1,826 players. The most dropped item was a warband infused. See, we say these things and it's like, oh, chill, who cares? I don't know what this is, right? And it's funny because you're not going to get it unless you go out and try to do these. I don't know if I can find like a video for it right quick. And again, I just saw that on my timeline and thought, hey, like, let's kind of highlight it. Maybe we can see some sort of gameplay. That's an interesting viewpoint for the game. I'm trying to think of what style this is, because there's a game that's coming to me, like Heroes of Might and Magic, kind of. But what's the thought, right? When we go and we have like these super high fidelity 3D worlds that are like Fortnite, or we have kind of these pixelated variations, or kind of like that older legacy vibe where we have with this, what's the name again? Raven Quest, Forgotten Runes, Wizard's Call, Rooneyverse. Right? It's interesting the different styles that were coming. Okay, so Abstract put out this piece by Luca Netz, and I started reading it, and I was like, okay, this is actually a really interesting piece. And basically, they have like this growth chart. And well, I don't want to go over everything because it's kind of lengthy, but they talk about how like the user growth just kind of goes up as you have the discretionary spending, the necessary spending, and then essentials. And this is kind of like the adoption phase through it. And I thought that it was fascinating. So if I can figure out how I want to break this down. So essential spending is online banking, credit, tokenization, real world assets, insurance, data, IoT, identity, and voting. So the essential spending is at the very end of this curve. So all those things that I just mentioned are kind of nascent, kind of don't exist as much as some of the other ones right now, but that's also on the end of the user growth curve, where if we go to discretionary spending, which is, well, okay, so I guess they put it right here, where right now, which is the early things for the discretionary spending, they have OpenSea for digital collectibles, Top Shot for digital collectibles, Polymarket for betting, Pump.Fun social and tokenized culture, Uniswap for trading, Rollbit for casino, Pudgy Penguins for digital collectibles, FriendTech social, Stepin social, Axie gaming. Now, I think you can just, arguably take out all those other pieces and just say, gaming, trading, casinos, betting, digital collectibles, or whatever. But I think this is a really interesting article if you want to dive into it, because it just talks about how we have this phase and then we go to all the other ones. And looking at the essentials and kind of like reflecting on the discretionary, I get it. I love it. I thought it was super fascinating. A new and mysterious launch by 2017 era project Cryptokitties has been trending up since mint a few days ago. 0.01 ETH, otherwise like 20 bucks, 2.27, and currently the second highest daily volume. If we go over to OpenSea here, I believe, yeah, 0.24, where yesterday these were 1.7. So technically, if you were on the stream yesterday and you bought one of these, you'd be up like 200 bucks. Now, I didn't say I was buying. You probably weren't even thinking about it yourself, but very interesting because I still think like a week ago, nobody was talking about Cryptokitties except for like the historical aspect. And, maybe some of the original ones were getting, decent bids. But then these go flying? It's interesting. Bringing back the narrative. And at one point, I guess earlier today, they actually hit 0.33 ETH, so a little bit of a FOMO blow off top, and then back down to reality a little bit. Yesterday, we had a fun little interview. It wasn't live, but it is up on YouTube and on X if you want to see my conversation with Believins, who's building Gambai Insights for the Root Network. It is a fun interview, and at the end of it, if you don't care about the app or anything like that, we went 15, 20 minutes into talking about more like 15 minutes. Into talking about how his thoughts are on Futureverse, from the things that we've seen to just general conversations around the metaverse overall. And I do have those timestamped on YouTube, so would love for you guys to go check that out. So what's the alpha from Korea Blockchain Week? I got 2 words for you. Story protocol. The recent raised led by A16Z provided my hypothesis that IP on-chain is the future of IP, is the age of digital renaissance. So, I've kind of been saying a little bit. I'm curious how these IPs are going to do, as we've seen a lot of Web3 ones struggle. Also, some ones do extraordinarily well, right? Not everyone, but it is hard to get that ground footing. And we don't really know a whole lot about Story, do we? And so this is S.Y. Lee is one of the people that are working on this. And I guess somebody put out kind of like a thread that was more of like a hit piece. And this was a response to it. We'll just kind of let you infer the different things. So one, Story as a Korean chain is interesting, but almost 90% of our team is based in the US, mostly at Palo Alto. We decided to focus a lot on Korea as a key market in the same way that Netflix spends billions in Korea after the US, because Korea gives them the best content like Squid Game and Crash Landing on You. Seoul is the global creative capital in the same way Paris is fashion. For anyone interested in IP and creativity, they should look at Seoul. And I also think this is interesting because, for some of you guys, Futureverse, done a lot in Korea. Koreans are also early adopters of any tech, and especially in crypto and AI. It makes a lot of sense. Unlike Icon and Terra, we are not a DeFi chain. We are an AI x IP chain, as you pointed out. IP is a multi-trillion-dollar asset, and there is so much to tokenize in the world of illiquid and non-programmable IP. Also, IP data is the most important elephant in the room for AI. Categorizing a mission-driven AI x IP chain with DeFi chains with dangerous Ponzi-nomics is not very apt. I've been hearing lots of comparisons with Icon and Terra recently, given that we are getting lots of traction very widely in Korea. However, digging underneath the surface and looking at the team composition, plus crucial problems we are trying to tackle in the same age of AI, is important. Now, I don't know if I have any extra takes with this. We saw the other day where it was my first time hearing about them, where they announced that they raised, it's like 120 million or something nuts. Obviously backed by A16Z as mentioned, but I was like, damn, so this is getting a lot of traction, and I heard about it for the first time like yesterday? What the heck? But then Aaron McDonald of Futureverse kind of also backed this up on a completely different tweet, saying, based on the conversations I've had, scale of partners we are signing on, and quality of the work I'm seeing for studio collaborations, I think gaming and IP in Web3 is very poised to have a very big moment in the next few quarters. So take of that what you will, but it is interesting kind of comparing and contrasting. Now, shout out Matty B, talking a little bit about the Collectibles report that just dropped from RWA. RWA.world. They do have an RWA day that's coming up in October. If you're in Salt Lake City, if you're interested in that, give me a shout and I can give you some of the details for it. But on Segment, you can log in every single day and get, yes. Okay, enjoy. You can actually earn XP every single day just from simply logging in, but they have a really cool piece if you scroll down here where the RWA Segments podcast is. And so if you want to hear me more, there's that. But they have a new RWA's Collectibles report. And I went, and I'm not going to read it all because this is super lengthy. It's great insights for anybody that's like analytical in that way. But they're talking about the global collectibles market. And in here, they highlight specifically online versus offline sales. Now, this is a little bit older data, but still fascinating. The digital transformation of the collectibles market is evident in the fine art sector, where online art sales increased from $6 billion in 2019 to $12.4 billion in 2020, accounting for 25% of total art sales. Now, when you jump to thinking, okay, back in 2020, it was 12.4, and the kind of mega run happened in 2021, think of how much the total art market is now on chain. It'd be absolutely astronomical. And then there's a piece here about high net individuals. The collectibles market is significantly influenced by high net worth individuals. A Deloitte survey found that 44% of UHNW, which is the high net worth individuals, collectors have 2 to 5% of their total wealth allocated to collectibles, with an aggregate 5% average portfolio composition among this similar group. Insane that they have that much in collectibles. So that means they're sticking around, right? Brad Garlinghouse of Ripple with the new programmability in the works for the XRP ledger, something the XRP community has rightly been asking for, and the growing opportunity for Ripple's enterprise products to serve crypto native customers, such as Futureverse using Ripple custody. The foundations of crypto infrastructure serving real world use cases are steadily becoming more robust by the day. So it's interesting when we look at Ripple and they keep talking about, the global markets, the wide world, all this other stuff, big picture. And now I feel like maybe I'm wrong, but for the first time, they're mentioning Futureverse. Monica Long, who's the president of Ripple, also mentioning Futureverse. A whole bunch of articles today mentioning Futureverse. We have Animoca Brands, who's out there before saying, hey, we're going to support all the tokens. Ecosystem's not moved at all. Like at all for any of these announcements. Auto blockchain apparently going to be like the main Ripple custody holding wallet app. Not really sure the exact phrasing to use for that, but again, that is like less than $1 million market cap to get the plug token that you burn for like it's insane. It's insane. There's literally zero movement on any of this stuff, and so either I'm crazy or everybody's going to realize soon. I think maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. So we talked about FTX a little bit earlier. Now, to give it a little bit of a better perspective of how much that $16 billion in cash, if it gets redeployed, it can be one of the biggest liquidity injections. For comparison, this is roughly half of all Bitcoin ETF inflows this year. That's a lot. What do you think of merch? What do you think of Gucci? What do you think of Hollister? Do you even care about brands? I mean, you might wear Nike shoes. Do you care about Nike versus Adidas? I don't know. For all these legacy brands, I don't think I can say, yeah, with definitive nature, I go out there and specifically buy a certain brand. But I mean, Pudgy Penguins out there, they're launching merch. Seen other people launching merch. Do we see the great renaissance where, I mean, right now, Pudgy's getting known for doing toys. What if they kill it with merch? What if another collection kills it with merch? The perspectives, the brand connection, it's all changing. It's going to be super interesting. All right, final thing that I'm going to leave you here with, just kind of a quick video of somebody walking through the Flow side event. And again, Flow is a blockchain that NBA Top Shot's on, NFL All Day. Korea Blockchain Week's a big happening. Curious to see all the different announcements from all the other teams that are out there. But so you don't have to go to Korea. Here's a quick little video of someone showing what these are. Again, I've been critical of some of these events just because it feels like, okay, you go, you listen to somebody speak. It's kind of cool. They have the booth set up and whatnot. But like, how do you go? Like, so what if like I'm standing there in the crowd and we can make like an awesome connection? How do I know of like who to talk to, right? Unless I'm feeling very eager. And that's the one thing that I think some of these events, if they have like more of like a forced social component, I think people would get a little bit more out of that. But these are what some of the Flow booth looks like. And I guess they're giving out some t-shirts on that. All right. What an episode of XFeed today. Again, a little bit earlier, we had the conversation with Nicolas Lejeune, from Courtyard. If you want to see that, get retweeted on the X page. If you want to see the interview with Believins, check out the pages as well. And I would love for you guys just to go back, scroll through the live tab. It's a lot easier on YouTube compared to like the other sites where you can see the narratives, the scope of things. What was the headline at the time back in January versus today? Give it a scroll. Watch one of those episodes. I think you'd be surprised. Appreciate the hell out of you guys coming on through, Mr. M. Tolly, Hypnotoad, and